keep that sparkle. Never let anything or anyone take that away, because that is your magic and that is who you are. And to share it with the world is the biggest gift that you can give.
From To Be Magnetic, this is the Expanded Podcast with your host, Lacey Phillips. As the leading destination for neural manifestation, we dispel the woo-woo in order to help you create real, tangible results based on neuroplasticity, psychology, epigenetics, and energetics. Our goal is to normalize the practice of manifestation and empower you to get into the driver's seat of your life in order to manifest the experiences, relationships, and things that most align with your authenticity. Part of our manifestation process entails expanding past your limiting subconscious beliefs. Therefore, by tuning into this podcast with interviews from experts, thought leaders, spiritual teachers, scientists, and those with neural manifestation success stories, you're starting the process of expanding your subconscious in order to see to believe that anything you desire is possible. And by pressing play, the process begins.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Expanded Podcast. Jessica here. We are underway with the Manifestation Challenge. We are in week 1 right now, and something about the challenge this year just feels like magic. We have a brand new How to Manifest workshop. We have new Deep Imaginings in there, but just something about the intentionality, the energy, the community, this time of year, something about it feels really hopeful and expansive and inspiring. If you want to start the process of manifesting anything you desire, start listening to your intuition and taking action from a place of true authenticity, now is the time to join. We are literally holding your hand through every single step of the How to Manifest process so you can connect with your manifestations on the other side. We have our biggest sale of the season going on right now. You spin the discount spinner, get your code, and lock in the membership for the year. And that is your access ticket to do the Manifestation Challenge. And then you will have the rest of all of our incredible workshops for the rest of the year. I have so many friends who I've tried to get to do this work for so long. They always say, yeah, but I don't have time. I will soon. I promise. I really want to do it. And something about this year, it clicked with them. And last night, 2 of them messaged me. They said, okay, what do I need to do? Where do I sign up? And how much time is this going to be? And can I join late? So I told them the easiest way to sign up right now is with our sale. You can spend the discount spinner, get the lowest rate you can possibly lock in for the entire year, join the pathway. Once you're in the pathway, you can start doing day 1 whenever you sign up and as it feels called to you. And the Manifestation Challenge is right there in the new platform or on the app. 2, time commitment. It will take about 20 to 30 minutes, maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more. On average, about 5 nights a week. Now, you can make a ritual out of it, make a fun exercise out of it, 1 time per day, just go in and do the work, or you can stack it all up and on the weekends catch up and go through it. If you have time and the bandwidth, I highly recommend going slow, only doing 1 portal section per day, because you really want to sit with the teachings. In previous years, we kind of release it all at the same time and let you go at your own pace. But we wanted to encourage people to not skip ahead, to really sit with the messages that we're teaching. Even if you've been doing this work for so long, the way that we are describing it in the written copy and in the video of this workshop, something new is going to click with you about this process. There is just something about the way that we're teaching the information now that is going to resonate in such a deeper way. So we really, really are trying to encourage you to sit with each teaching, to let it sink in, because the more you know this process, the faster and the better you're going to be at manifesting. Third thing, can you join late? Absolutely. We are going to leave the challenge open until March 1st. That means even if you want to kick off the challenge January 1st, go for it. You will have the entire time to finish out and complete every single step of the challenge without needing to duplicate days or do extra days. That being said, our sale is only going to be available until the end of December. That's why it's so vital to make sure you lock in your lowest rate of the season, because we are not going to have another sale for a long time. So highly recommend jumping in if you feel the ping, if this feels like your year. If any of this is speaking to you in any way, I promise you, you will not regret it. This is our most effective challenge we have ever created because it is intentionally taking you through every single minute step of this process, and you will be manifesting on the other side. So cheers to all of that. On today's episode, we have an incredible process guest. Her name is Alix Traeger. You may recognize her from YouTube and social media and the TV show Chopped, under her handle Major Traeger. She is a digital creator, a food blogger, recipe connoisseur, and honestly, she has the most infectious and bubbly personality. She's such a joy to talk to. She has been doing this manifestation work for quite some time. She's manifested some massive things through the TPM process, including allowing herself to have space to understand her sexual orientation, manifesting her dream home, her dream partner, and some massive career up levels. So excited for you guys to hear this episode. I know you're gonna fall in love with her. And stay tuned for the outro. I will give anyone going through the manifestation challenge some tips and tricks and thoughts and insights to keep you motivated and expanded.
And now a word from our partners.
I am so jazzed to announce our brand new podcast partner who has incredible products that I am obsessed with and is such a sustainable, thoughtful, and transparent company. We are now partnering with Ned. So Ned is a holistic supplement company that was really birthed out of two founders' rock bottoms. They had hit a wall at their life and realized that the track that they were on, the success route, their mental health, their physical health was all going to the wayside, and they were so away from their authenticity. They decided to strip all of that away and really put into place how do you nurture your body from the inside out with high quality, sustainable products? And how do you build a business that's built on this level of transparency and really working very closely with the sourcing and producing and every single supply chain partner that comes with creating high quality products? And that is what Ned has sought out to do and is doing. One of my absolute favorite products from them is their magnesium super blends. Magnesium for me is a nighttime go-to. It really calms my body, my nervous system, and it also helps fill me with a lot of nutrients that I'm needing that I might have missed throughout the day. Magnesium is one of those really cool power players that when you have good levels of magnesium, it can help with other vitamin productions that you may be missing, such as vitamin D. So lack of magnesium can cause things like sleeplessness. It can impact the way you absorb and create some of your nutrients, how you're absorbing vitamins. It can exacerbate anxiety. So having a high quality magnesium in your routine and making sure you're getting enough is so vital. It also really helps with digestion. So I've been taking their magnesium super blend supplement for almost a year now. I will not travel without it. It is my number one go-to. I typically like their lavender berry or their naked blend, and they just came out with a brand new product called their Shut-Eye Chai. It's inspired by 5,000 years of ancient healing tradition and their biggest product launch to date. So this is a super blend latte for sleep that combines adaptogens, aminos, functional mushroom, magnesium. It's a super blend latte that is dairy-free, caffeine-free, melatonin-free, does not contain CBD, is filled with not only magnesium, but also functional mushrooms like chaga and reishi, adaptogens like ashwagandha, and some of the heavenly masala chai-inspired spices such as cinnamon, clove, ginger, black pepper, all of the good stuff. It is extremely calming to your nervous system, tastes absolutely delicious, And it's the perfect nightcap, I think, this time of the year. I like to get cozy in front of the fireplace, make Daniel watch a nice Christmas or holiday movie with me, and having, instead of a warm cup of cocoa, I have a warm cup of shut-eye chai. And I know I'm getting all the nutrients and minerals and vitamins and really calming my nervous system down. This time of year has been all about nervous system relaxing and de-stressing any way I can. And this is my perfect bedtime ritual. And Ned is offering a 15% discount with code TBM15. So if you go to helloned.com/TBM15 or enter the code TBM15 at checkout, you can get 15% off whatever item you purchase. We're so excited to introduce you to Ned and know you're going to fall in love with them as much as we have. So you know how much we love the Seed Symbiotic, the pre and probiotic combo here at TB Magnetic. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the science in probiotics. So a lot of times you hear kombucha, kimchi, fermented foods. If you're eating that, then you're getting enough probiotic. But the truth is you really need a regular quality probiotic in order to have the most diverse, good gut bacteria to help balance your stomach microbiome. Learning the science behind all things is a huge passion of mine. And so I've been deep diving into the Seed University of all of their education and science that they have behind their product. They're the most science-backed research probiotic I've found on the market. And what I really love about it is I'm someone who has struggled with gut issues and digestive issues and stress issues pretty much my whole life. And so having a high quality probiotic is a non-negotiable. I've taken 1,000,001 different kinds of probiotics on the market, and none of them really pack the punch and seem to be doing an impact that kept me consistent until Seed. Because Seed created their VitaCap, which is the capsule that their pre and probiotic live in, it was scientifically engineered to survive stomach acid, bile, salts, enzyme, to get 100% of everything that's in the capsule to the right part of your digestive system and populate with good bacteria. It has been so helpful for me. I will not go anywhere without it. It is the first thing I do when I get up in the morning with my cup of lemon water. And I highly recommend it to anyone who is looking to support their GI function, skin health, heart health, gut, immune, gut barrier integrity, or anyone that just really has digestive issues. There's so many things that need to be in homeostasis in order for that to be supportive. And this is the foundation of what is going to set you up for good gut health overall. And so exciting, we've been partnering with Seed for so long that they've increased the discount for you guys. Use the code TBM20 to receive 20% off your first month of Seed's Daily Symbiotic. I am so excited for you guys to try this out. It's been a game changer in my gut health, and I know it will be for yours as well. You can check the link in the show note or go to seed.com/TBM.
All right. On to the episode.
I'm here with TBM Pathway member and incredible, how would you say it, like food and lifestyle influencer, blogger, chef extraordinaire?
I don't know about extraordinaire. I am a cooking video producer mostly, but I'm a lot of things online. And I like to just share my life with the world, and especially my love of food and cooking.
Yes. So today we have Alix Traeger. Welcome, Alix. How are you doing today?
I am so good. Honestly, so excited to be here. Obviously, this is a huge manifestation for me as well. I think when I started the work, I kind of always had a hunch that I would be on the pod, but, wanted to take my time and make it feel right, where I was really ingrained in the work and able to speak on my experience. And I'm just still pinching myself that this time has come.
Oh my gosh, you've had such a powerful story. So let's actually kick off with your astrology, as we do many of the process episodes. So do you know your sun, moon, and rising sign?
Of course. I am a Taurus sun, and I'm the first day of Taurus. So some people don't really go by cusp, but Aries Taurus cusp, and then a Aries moon and Gemini rising.
Oh, you got the powerhouse. You're going, going, going.
Yes, for sure. And oftentimes I relate a lot to Aries just because I feel like I have a lot of that energy. But I feel like as I've gotten older, I definitely have grown more into my Tauran energy.
I feel like cooking is even really a Tauran energy thing because it's such an art form and as such a craft. So it's like leaning into that beautiful luxury of life.
Totally. And just like the indulgence, the food. Yeah, I love robes, anything that's like very great to the senses. So very, very torn in that way. But then I also love to like travel and go out. I'm very fiery and adventurous. So I relate to that as well.
Love that. Okay, so what is your cultural background and upbringing, and how did that inform who you are today?
Yeah, I grew up in the Bay Area. I'm Caucasian and I am 29 years old now. And I come from a small town called Woodside, and it's in Silicon Valley. So a lot of wealth around and high pressure, high stakes college prep schools and very buttoned up families and perfection around. And, that comes with its own challenges as well. And knowing that career is super important and kind of a reflection of yourself, I'd say. So a lot of those messages were, not only just subconsciously told, but just in your face in that area. And, that can be really problematic for a lot of people. And it's not without its challenges.
I think too, at the time this episode's going to air too, we're going to be like in the midst of the manifestation challenge and really people are in the week of crafting their authenticity. And so I'm thinking about your authentic inner child being in that setting. What did your authentic inner child really crave? If that's what they were witnessing, it's career and you have to be a certain way and sort of like she posh or whatever that world sort of looks like. What did you genuinely authentically crave?
Yeah, I was a super sensitive little girl. I come from a family of five. I have two older siblings, so I was the youngest. And I just remember always feeling like a deep need for, attention and love and always wanting to express my creative side. And I've always loved cooking and food. And I remember, growing up when my siblings maybe wanted to watch Cartoon Network, I wanted to watch the Food Network and, always fostering the love of that creativity. And I went to an incredibly small school for both middle school and high school. And, when I kind of later chat with my current friends now about childhood and things like that, like some of them are like, whoa, like you had such a different experience, especially even through high school of like me, I wanted to be in plays, foster my creative side. And some people would think I was kind of like a loser in that way. But I just had such a love and spirit for creativity and just being my authentic, weird self. And there wasn't exactly all those layers of like having to be cool and building those layers until a little bit later. Of course, that still comes into play.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm thinking, okay, along your journey, it seems like you really were dialed into your passions, from a young age. Like you were very sort of clear on it. How did you go from being the kid who was watching the Food Network while everyone was watching cartoons to starting to cook? And even your career growth, I find really fascinating because we were sort of at an age, what was it, like 5-10 years ago when it was like all the sort of blogger website scenes, the Buzzfeeds, like all of those video content was blowing up. And I think it was really hard for a lot of people who were literally managing all of their own brands through this channel of these different sites to then taking that and moving that audience and launching your own thing. So how did you sort of make that transition?
I think my career trajectory has been pretty wild and just a testament to the fact that I have always been manifesting even before I really knew it or had words for it. But I have always loved cooking and food. I was always gravitating naturally towards it in the kitchen, wanting to help my family or my mom or my aunts who are also great cooks. It was just a natural passion of mine, and it was so much fun. I always loved having fun, mainly in the kitchen. And then, growing up, I think layers and layers of that programming of you have to have a stable career and you have to do something that's successful and notable. And I went to college, and about halfway through college, I was actually studying for a science degree. I was going to do potentially nursing because I felt that was, a really stable, good choice. And about halfway through, it was like, I'm going to start a little food blog. And it was just kind of a creative outlet, something that I just wanted to do. And so I started just putting my recipes online. I figured out how to build the website myself. It wasn't by any means very good, but it was just a fun outlet. And I remember kind of the feeling of being like, oh, like, are people going to think this is weird or like cringy in any way? Because I was, sharing about myself online, and that wasn't something that a lot of my peers were doing at the time at our age. So I was just kind of doing it for fun. And I wouldn't even say it really grew that much. But as I kind of grew into that, I started, taking little jobs here and there for people. And I started even cooking for a frat house on campus in college. And by the time I was ready to graduate senior year, I had decided that, you know what, I just did this whole entire science degree, but I don't want to go into this nursing field. Also, I don't belong in a hospital. If you know me at all from my videos, I'm extremely clumsy, and that wouldn't have been a great fit anyways. But 2 weeks before graduation, I was like, you know what? I'm going to go for it. So I didn't know what that looked like. And at the time, food media, food videos wasn't what it is today. It was still like very much TV and things like that, although blogging had emerged and building your own website. So I was like, maybe I'll buy myself a year to see if I can get this thing to take off at all. And at the time, I didn't know it, but I had a huge expander for me who is also now in this spiritual space. She's the Balanced Blonde, Jordan Younger.
Oh, yeah, love her.
Yeah, she was actually 2 years older than me in college, and she had started her blog. And I remember messaging her being like, I want to do this, I think. And she was like, go for it, like do it. And so she kind of helped me get started in that. And she was doing a lot of recipes at the time as well. So I was like, she was totally an expander for me, what I would have called a role model at the time. But now looking back, I'm like, oh my God, it's so obvious what she was in relation to this work. And so after I graduated, I was like, you know what, I'm going to buy myself a time. Jordan's doing the blogging thing. So I decided that I wanted to move because I also love to travel. So I decided to move as an au pair, which meant taking care of kids abroad, which would offer me the chance to travel abroad and then also take care of kids, but offer me the chance to live with a family. And it's just a way that I could live somewhere else and without money, essentially. Like I would get paid to be living with this family. So I hadn't been to Scandinavia before. I chose Sweden kind of randomly. I found the family on aupairworld.com, and I moved within a couple weeks after I graduated. And I lived there. I started a new food blog. I was doing that. I actually started working there as a food stylist because I had gotten connected with someone who was a food stylist in Sweden whose assistant had just quit. So timing was perfect. Started working with her on the side because as an au pair, the kids would go to school. So I would have the whole day. So it's a really great way to have this time to myself, but also be working and traveling abroad. Yeah. And as I started working as a food stylist with her, I was starting to build different sets of skills and really loved food styling and felt like I finally saw an actual fit for a career for me. Because again, I'm clumsy and silly, and I didn't really think a restaurant setting was for me either in the food world. So almost like a year to the date, which is exactly the time I had allotted myself to be abroad, I ended up applying for the internship at Buzzfeed Tasty, which was incredibly new and still had grown super fast. So I knew of it, but then applying for that internship, and I had quite literally no video skills at all, but they gave me a chance for an interview. I had my Skype interviews from Sweden and basically told them in so many words, I don't know how to make a video, but I know food and I know technology. And if you give me a camera and tell me what button to push, I will do it.
That's that Aries right there for sure.
Yes. They gave me a chance and they gave me the job and said, how soon can you start? Because it was an internship. So it was kind of a scheduled classes kind of situation. So they were like, we're actually starting next week and you should be here. So I packed up and I left Sweden and I moved right back to LA and started working for Tasty, and the rest is history there.
Wow. Okay. That is so fascinating. And also just noticing how, as you are moving into your authenticity, leaning into this food thing, saying no to this nursing career and taking these risks and chances, it's almost like the universe was rewarding you along the way, figuring out the au pair job so you could have this next career shift to your authenticity.
Totally. And I still look back and I'm like pinching myself that I'm even here right now. And what's crazy is that my perfect dream career wasn't one I could put into words even 10 years ago or when I was a child. It didn't really exist. It evolved as I evolved, which feels lucky, but also just meant to be in a way.
So, what led you to the TBM work?
It was at a time where I was really burnt out at work. I was still a full-time producer and the job was incredibly demanding. I had also grown my own following while I was still a full-time producer. And I started to just get the feeling that like I wasn't fully happy anymore and it wasn't serving me and that there was more for me. And I felt super overworked and also undervalued in pay and otherwise. And I decided to make the jump to quit, even though it was a time where I was almost at my peak. And so I was met with a lot of pushback on that. But again, I've always been someone who's been really willing to take those risks and make those jumps. That's always come naturally to me as a person. So that has served me well, I would say, and has offered me a lot of these big manifestations if I apply the work to my life. But I started to get the itch to quit, and it was something I couldn't ignore. It just grew and grew, and I even started breaking out in hives, every time I would have to go. And one day I was speaking to my manager and I just hit a wall where they were talking about quota. And I was just like, all I could hear was like, wah, 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 truly in my ear. And at that moment, I said, I have to put in my 2 weeks. It was a decision, again, that was met with a lot of criticism and people saying, what are you doing? You're at your height. But I just knew it wasn't right anymore. And I've always liked to be ahead of the curve. So I made the jump, and that was incredibly scary and life-changing, but it also aligned at a time in my life. And this was in 2019. So it aligned at a time in my life that I was going through an intense heartbreak situation. I was incredibly infatuated with this guy who was incredibly mediocre and didn't really give me the time of day. So quitting the job, aligning with that, and a lot of just big life changes at that time completely spiraled me into what I would call a spiritual awakening. I had so much time on my hands after having quit my job. I lived alone in a 1-bedroom apartment, and I was just like diving into a spiritual practice that I didn't even know. I didn't even have words for what a spiritual awakening was. I wasn't spiritual really at all. I'd grown up religious, but that never really felt right for me. And so I was just kind of bopping through life, I would say. And my spiritual awakening, I would say, was very, harsh and extreme. I dove headfirst into it, and I started eating vegan right away and stopped drinking alcohol. I stopped going out at all. I completely isolated. I would hike for 5 to 10 miles a day. And obviously I had, the luxury of doing that. When I quit my job, I decided that I would take 2 weeks off to just kind of relax and recharge before I dove into, making my own YouTube videos and things like that. But that time period grew and grew and grew as I just realized the extent of how burnt out I was. So it was about a year of me going through this spiritual phase in my life. I also had a following at that point. So I felt a lot of pressure to be posting content. I think a lot of people were also kind of confused with my state of mind, from such a drastic change. I was this silly, fun-loving, wild, loud girl on the internet making messy cooking videos to someone who was completely different. And what I thought was spirituality was in that time being that sort of recluse and being really wise and sharing those aspects, but also being very like pure in a way of like not going out, not drinking, being smaller, I would say. So I went through like a year of that, and a lot of people were incredibly concerned for me. Like my family was like, what is happening to her? And I was, just assuring them, look, nothing of what I'm doing is bad. I'm going to yoga classes instead of going out and drinking. So, I had arguments in that way, but I wasn't my shiny, sparkly self, and people could see that. So after that year, I started to really get some of that mojo back, I would say, and started kind of emerging into myself and realizing that what I thought was spirituality wasn't exactly right and on the nose. It could be so many different things, and I could still be a spiritual, wise, deep person and still be myself. And so I started kind of emerging out of that cocoon period, I would say. And then the pandemic hit. I, again, was still living in my 1-bedroom apartment, and in many ways, I kind of felt like, I can help in this time period because I had been for the last year before the pandemic kind of on my own and navigating a pretty isolated life. And so I felt like, wait, I got this. I can spread some joy here. So I started getting back into making cooking videos regularly, and there was great response to that. And I felt really reinvigorated. Then I made the decision to actually move back home to the Bay Area because I kind of felt like, what am I doing here in Los Angeles in this 1-bedroom? I'm alone. There's nothing going on here. Why am I like spending all this money to be here when I could actually be spending time with family? And moving home was much more about like, this will be a time in my life that I won't really be faced with again. And I know I will never regret having spent that time with my family, and so that was like the biggest call. And again, I was faced with a lot of criticism. My friends were like, well, what are you going to do? You're going to move home. A lot of judgment from other people also, like, ooh, she's moving home. That must not be good. But to me, I was like, I don't care. Like, I cannot wait to move home. So I did. And it was such an amazing, beautiful year filled with family and a lot of nature where I'm from. So that was incredibly healing. But while I was home, I realized that I had followed TBM on Instagram during my spiritual phase, but never signed up for the courses. And it just started popping up, I think, more and more on my Instagram. And I was like, actually, maybe this sounds pretty good for me. I wanted more structure. I was craving having that balance again, where I kind of fell off of my spiritual practice. I wanted that again in just a more balanced way, of course. But so I just made the decision, I'm just going to download this. And I tried the free exercise online, and it really felt good. And then I truly dove headfirst into the work. And that's how I got to TVM.
I think that's such a good point you bring up, because I think a lot of times when people have these spiritual awakenings, there's this idea of what spiritual is. You have to act a certain way and look a certain way, and you can never have bad emotions. If you have bad emotions, you're not spiritual. It's like all this sort of spiritual bypass superstition around this practice that's very internal. It's all about your own internal state and journey. And there's nothing more spiritual than having emotions.
Exactly.
Being able to feel those emotions is what makes you uniquely human, and not being afraid to look at those emotions is that spiritual work. So it's really cool how you sort of had this, okay, this is what I think it's supposed to look like, and this is the box I'm supposed to fit in if this is what my goal is. But actually, what does it look like for me as an individual?
And that's what's so wild. I mean, I look back in that year of isolation and not really being myself, but being by definition, spiritual. And I did so much work on myself, and I was like pushing. Where are my manifestations? Where's my person? Where's this love I crave? And where's my career growth and all these things? And nothing was manifesting for me in that time because I wasn't myself. Nothing comes through in a more significant way than when I am my most messy, crazy, wild, loud, authentic self, because that is who I am.
That is so, so powerful to know, and also such the opposite of what so many manifestation practices will teach you. So what was on your first list? I mean, you've manifested career growth, getting out of debt, your manager, your home sanctuary space, your partner, Tesla, experiences, freedom, independence, and career, monetary growth, TV shows, cookbook deal, travel, PR. I mean, the list is fantastic. So what were you initially going in there to manifest, and how did sort of the process shift for you as you were pulling back all of these layers?
I think at the core, my biggest manifestation has always been love. I've always wanted my partner. I've always wanted that person. I've always wanted to be in a relationship. And like I said before, my career really came pretty easily for me just because I wasn't so like focused on it and heavily putting energy towards it in a way that was more like dog paddling and desperation. So I felt really blocked in love for a long time. And that was definitely my driving source for any of these spiritual tools. You know, I felt like I even had my spiritual awakening because I was so heartbroken by this person that didn't even give me the time of day. That moment of coming to my knees and realizing that this person was the same exact person that I kept attracting and nothing was changing. It was like a complete light bulb moment, but then also like a point where I could finally shift and be like, oh my God, it was an awakening. And I realized in that moment that I had to do something different. And from there on, it's been about dedicating myself to those changes. And so, yeah, of course, you know, the money and the career and all of that has come alongside it. But, you know, love was one thing I had my eye set on. So when I started TBM, I really had that as my biggest intention. But I moved first through how to manifest and inner child and shadow, and then really found all of these pain points and things that patterns and things that I had to work on through that, and uncovering what it was I wanted at my core. I realized I was incredibly hesitant to do the money workshop. And having also been a big listener of the podcast, I knew that money and love were so connected. So honestly, again, love was another motivator for me to do the money workshop. So it was kind of like this end goal in sight, I'd say. And then I did the money workshop and found so many blocks in that: complete head in the sand mentality, complete lack of self-worth, and not able to ask for what I want or need or deserve. And also just cycles of debt, and debt to my parents and debt and credit cards, and just total head in the sand. So I actually sold my car. I paid back my parents, and I started budgeting and being more conscious of that. And it's really wild when I think back on it, because even just by making those small changes, it made me really realize that there was definitely something more to it. There's an energy behind it, because making small changes, energy just started flowing and so many channels opened up. And I'm, you know, now in a time where I make my entire salary, you know, that I would make in a year in one deal.
I mean, that's so expansive, right? I'm even thinking for the people who feel stuck in their jobs, undervalued, underpaid, for you to say, look, when you go in and you do that work and you really shift, you could be making what you do in a year within one deal.
Yeah. And it's like, you don't know what you don't know, but like, you are your biggest advocate. You know, for someone like me, I'm incredibly silly and fun loving and not so serious. So sometimes it's hard to be taken seriously, but I have to have that self-worth to be able to do that. I am my advocate. And I'm not able to be if my confidence is low, or I don't think of myself as someone who knows what they're doing and who's really successful in what I do, you can't fake that. And, to be able to convince people of that also, you have to do that work first. And lo and behold, after doing the money workshop and all of these workshops, and as, manifestations were coming in, I have manifested my partner. And that is, my biggest manifestation, of course, and something that I still am like pinching myself. But you'll laugh at this, that if I look back at my manifestation list for my person, which I was doing the work. So, you know how we're supposed to write down the list of your person and everything you want. And at the top of my list, I was actually looking back through my journals this morning just to kind of remind myself of how far I've come and what I've manifested. And at the top of my list, it says my guy with hearts on it. And through this work, I actually was able to come out, and I have manifested my partner, who is an amazing, amazing girl named Zoya.
Oh, it's so incredible.
Yeah.
I was going to ask that too, paint the picture of what was the type of guy that you were like, damn, I keep getting these guys, they're doing this. And then what did you realize was that block missing piece? And then paint the picture of how that led to oh my gosh, it's actually not about a guy, and figuring out that discovery of yourself.
So the guys I would attract in my life were very non-committal. They were very half in, half out. And that's obviously comes with its own energy. I don't say I would have a specific type, but, I guess I would say the bad boy type, or someone, there's something with that. There's something about someone not being that involved in you that makes you want them more. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. And it was in realizing that I valued their opinion of me higher than I valued the opinion of myself and my own self-worth in regards to relationship. Why would I want to be with someone who can't send me a text? My self-worth was so low in dating. And I even was with people who were pretty awful, borderline abusive, at least emotionally, and reckless. And it was just something where I was so desperate, had such a desperate energy, and it wouldn't attract the right people for me. And I would always wonder, why am I broken? Why do I see other people in relationships, and what's wrong with me? Why can't I have this? I felt like it was a punishment almost. And it was until I realized oh, this is within me. I can sit here forever and ever and just say, they're an asshole, they didn't treat me right. But until I saw the link between all of these experiences, the only common thread is me. And that was such a big realization of being okay, it's not just self-deprecation. It is an opportunity to change. So even just by recognizing that, I completely changed the people who were coming my way. I mean, I actually took that year of, isolation, and I didn't really date because I didn't really feel ready to, and I wanted to heal in those ways and learn and grow. And of course, I was holding that manifestation for me, but I also wasn't really offering myself the opportunity to meet anybody. I was at home all the time, and community wasn't really clicking for me. So I remember this moment where I actually met someone. It was New Year's, and my friends were like, please come out with us. You've been at home forever. All these holidays you're missing, just come out with us. You don't have to do anything. Just have fun. You're allowed to have fun. And I remember just such a guilty energy about going out. I was oh, I shouldn't be doing this. It's not spiritual. I shouldn't be drinking. But, I was screw it. I'm going to go. So I went out, and at that party, I met someone. And he was a guy, but incredibly spiritual, incredibly kind, and definitely better than anyone I had dated before. And it was almost whoa, that was a manifestation that came through. And I was able to meet someone despite what I thought I needed to do to meet someone, which was be this spiritual recluse. So that was kind of interesting. And that wasn't a relationship that I was fully expecting to work out, but it was definitely something that pulled me out of that energy and kind of got me into this understanding that I can still be myself and have fun.
So I'm quickly interrupting this episode to invite you, if you're ready to start your manifestation journey, or if anything you've heard in our manifestation episodes has piqued your interest to begin. We have a la carte workshops in everything from the basics bundle, which is what we recommend to everyone who starts. It's the formula that actually teaches you how to manifest, unblocked inner child, and unblocked shadow. We also have a la carte workshops on love and money. But the real gem is the Pathway membership because it encompasses every single workshop we have. It's a year-long membership with full access to the few a la carte offerings we have and exclusive workshops not available anywhere else, such as the daily practice, which is what everybody in the Pathway uses, hopefully at least 3 times a week to daily, in order to truly create the new neural pathways that one needs in order to manifest, and houses the library of our deep imaginings, which is our unique hypnosis process that allows you to get into your subconscious and overwrite those old neural pathways, creating the new ones.
And we have our biggest holiday sale going on right now until the end of the year, where you can lock in the lowest rate of the season. When you join the Pathway, you will also have access to our manifestation challenge, which we will walk you through step by step of this process on how to manifest the exact item of your dreams. You can check the link in the show notes to spin the spinner and lock in your lowest rate.
Okay, now back to the episode.
Then as I started to actually do the TBM work and still had dating experiences where actually I was living at home, I started to kind of apply the formula to that and be like, is this a test? Is this right? And as I demanded also more from the people I was dating, from the men I was dating. And sometimes that would feel really awkward. There was a dating experience I had where the guy wasn't responsive to me. And I said, look, even though we hadn't even met yet, I was like, look, I'm not looking for casual. And if you're not actually interested in fully dating, then I'm not going to go down this road. And honestly, he made me feel like I was really demanding and too much. But I stayed in that feeling of like, no, that's what I needed to say. And that was true for me. And it was. He didn't respond to that message. And 3 days later said, yeah, we're not on the same page. And I was kind of like in my mind, like, well, duh. And then, didn't respond. And sure enough, like a few months later, he messaged me again. But, by that time I had grown so much, in 3 months of doing this work, you grow so much. So those little interesting, expansive experiences and just like trusting that you know what you need to say or what you need to do. And I kept on following that path. But again, I was living at home and I was doing this work. And kind of seamlessly as I was doing it, I started to have these like flashbacks. And of course, I'm journaling about my past and doing inner child. And I started to have these flashbacks in my childhood room, which I find like really weirdly universal.
It's so beautiful. It's so like cosmically beautiful.
So cosmic, yeah. And just having these flashbacks of me as like an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old, realizing that I might be gay. And this feeling of like quickly suppressing it, of just like, shut that off, push that down, bury it. So as I started having these flashbacks more and more, I started delving into that more and more. And I decided to switch my dating profiles to both boys and girls and just like, let me see. And quickly thereafter, I met a girl and we had like the best first date I could ever have imagined. She was so thoughtful and so caring. And it was also something I wasn't really ready to share with my family. So there was a lot with that of kind of like secretly dating someone at home and wanting to keep that to myself and figure this all out. And there is a lot of emotional baggage that comes with coming out. I mean, I think it's a very, very personal experience. It's only something that you can kind of put words to. But it was also something that I was kind of looking for, this sign over my head that was like, okay, gay or straight, but that never really comes. It's kind of always like a figuring yourself out and going with what feels right or not going with what feels right and uncovering more and more about yourself. And it's much more of a coming in than a coming out, I say.
Oh, I love that. That's so beautiful.
Yeah. So then, I felt like this dating experience with this girl wasn't exactly quite right. And I had a lot of anxiety about that too, because she was so caring and so great and the best person I'd probably dated up until that point. I just felt like there was still something more. And I was living at home again. So that was about the time that the pandemic was easing up. So I knew I was going to move back to LA. And so I made the jump and moved back to LA. And I ended up ending things with her. And then I had this interesting dating experience where I was kind of debating whether I wanted to put my dating profiles to only women or keep it at both and still date both. And so I was kind of confused in that and looking for guidance. One thing about me is I've always desired this meet cute experience. Like, who doesn't want that? You want to keep a story to tell. And me loving food, I always thought it would be like a grocery store experience, something cute like that. And I was on my way to the grocery store with my friends after having just moved back to LA. We were talking and I was like, I heard this grocery store is actually a great place to meet people because everyone's so attractive here and wanting to meet people. So she said, oh, actually, one of my friends was asked out at this grocery store. And I was like, what? I never have been asked out at the grocery store. Like, why doesn't that happen for me? So we go to that grocery store and I don't get asked out, but I was like, I want a sandwich. So I'm going to go to the grocery store that's right next door. It was a different one. So I walk over there with my other friend and we're waiting in line for sandwiches. And I get asked out in the sandwich line by this really cute guy. He asked for my number. We just about screamed in this grocery store. We were like, what the heck just happened? So I was like, oh my God, I met my person. This is it. And so we go back and I ended up going on a date with this guy and he had literally everything going for him. He had his own house. He had an amazing job. He was really athletic and cute. And we went on a hike to Griffith Park. But I remember just sitting on that date and being like, this is everything that I wanted. This is everything that I could have asked for. And I just don't want it. And I just don't feel like it's right. And at that moment, I switched my dating profiles to only women. And quickly thereafter, I met my girlfriend, Zoya.
I mean, okay, this is such a really important thing to talk about. And that is why getting so clear on your authenticity when writing your list, and as you uncover more layers of your authenticity to refinesse your list and update your list, because you did manifest exactly what you put on that initial list. My guy with hearts,
Yes.
You did call that in. You were at the same level of self-worth as that person. But as you uncovered more of your true self, that doesn't even align anymore. You had the insight to know this is everything I thought I wanted. And now that I know me more, I know this is no longer what I need or what fits my life.
Totally. And Zoya, I mean, she does have a very masculine energy. That's what's so interesting. Coming into this life, it's so clear that energy is what it's all about, and boxes, don't have to exist or don't exist. That's why I never really identified with fully lesbian or any of these terms, because I was just like, I'm just me and I like who I like and I'm choosing who feels right for me. And my sexuality might be very niche, but Zoya has an incredibly masculine energy and she has everything that is on my list and more. She is so much better than anyone I've dated or anyone I could have dreamed to date. And that's also what is so important for me in manifestation, is remembering that you have your own ideas of what you want, but the universe has the ultimate idea of what you want and need. And staying open to that is so important. And I just think the LGBTQ community inherently are such great manifestors, because at your core, you're already choosing to live your life against the grain and outside of the box of what people expect of you. You're choosing your happiness, and that is so magnetic.
So, so true. What would you say for the person who is just beginning this sort of self discovery journey, who is going through and having those memories and realizing, like, oh my gosh, I'm having memories or flashbacks or thoughts of connecting with my authenticity, and I do feel like I'm shifting my sexual identity and that's changing, and they're terrified. They're terrified to go about it. They're terrified to explore it. What would you want to have heard when you were in that period? And what advice would you have for other people?
I mean, it can be a very, very terrifying and overwhelming experience. And it was for me too. It came with a lot of baggage. And, I'm so lucky to be in a family that is ultimately accepting of me. And, if you are coming out to yourself, always make sure that you're safe to do so and never feel like you have to do something for other people. And, I just want to lead with that. But yeah, it can be super overwhelming. And it came with a lot of grief as well. I had to let go of this life that I thought I would have in a way, because actually life can be so much better in different ways. And you can still have those things like a family and marriage and all of that. But it's to take it day by day and to really go slow and to feel it out. And it doesn't have to be like, okay, you've had these flashbacks and realizations. Now I have to come out to the world and have this big moment. Again, it's coming in. So that's such a first step, is having that realization for yourself. And I would say someone who's really intimidated by it, I would just say start small, like start exploring it. Start seeing what feels good. I can get really caught up in is this right or is this not right? Is this a yes or is this a no? Is this a test? Is this not a test? And originally when I started the work, I got really caught up in like tests, and it gave me a lot of anxiety. But what I kind of keep as my guidepost is what feels warm. Sit with yourself. What feels warm? What do you feel feels good in your body? And move towards that. And take time with it. Breathe through it. Journal about it. Journaling is so helpful. Like, I look back on all of my journal entries and I look back and I'm like, wow, this girl was so wise and I didn't even know it. Like, sometimes I look and I'm like, wow, I wrote that, like it's crazy. But take time with it and feel what feels warm and trust, because my life is so beautiful now. And like, it's so different than what I could even expect. But I have such a community that I never had before, and a community that fully loves you and understands you and has been through it too. I didn't even realize that was something that I craved so deeply. So what's so amazing about being gay is you don't just get your partner or this life with your partner, but you get this community and this built-in camaraderie of some pretty spectacular people.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And I think that really vision holds for anyone out there who might be struggling.
Yeah. And, I think it's really important to note that like my girlfriend is Persian, and that comes with its own challenges. She comes from a culture that is not as accepting of homosexuality, and it's been really hard for her. And I understand that everybody's journey is so unique. And, I think her advice would always be stay true to who you are and don't lose that about yourself, and keep that center. And sometimes that means protecting yourself. And I think that also comes with self-worth and living life the way you're meant to. And if people can't see the love that you hold or the beauty and magic that you are inherently at your core, then they don't deserve that spot in your life.
Shifting gears a little bit. So you participated in our unblocking challenge.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that, how that helped navigate, what came through on the other side for you, what that process was all about.
I love this work just because it offered me structure where I felt like I lack a lot of structure. I'm pretty chaotic, I guess all over the place, not so organized. And it's hard for me to stay consistent, especially when I'm doing so many things at once. So having that structure has been amazing for me and has allowed me the consistency to keep myself going. But then it was tenfold within the unblocking challenge of being able to have almost like even more structure and having other people doing it alongside me. And I feel like there was just like probably collective energy that we were all feeling. It's so funny because I feel like with manifestation for me, sometimes my manifestations don't come through at the peak of wanting them or like keeping my focus on them and like doing all this work and being like, I want this thing. They're actually much more like subtle in the way they come in. And sometimes I have to remind myself to look back and be like, what have I manifested? And sometimes I'll be like, oh my God, I already manifested that thing that I wanted so badly before. So it's almost like they can like secretly slip in, but it's because I feel like your self-worth has matched that thing to the point where you're not like so caught up in it and so directing your energy towards it. You're kind of like more chill in a chill zone, and then they can kind of like slip into your life naturally. And often I find myself now, I'm find myself in this apartment, my dream apartment that I bought and have remodeled, and now I'm sitting in it and I'm like, I can't even believe I'm here, but I am.
I think that's such a good note too, because when people are going through this work, especially starting out, really wanting those big things, the career shift, the new home, the partner, it feels like, how can I even like think about what's happening in my life right now? All I can think about is how I really want this big thing to come through. Your shift has to be from wanting this thing to come through to wanting to face all of the things within you that make you feel unworthy, just in general.
Yes.
And when your focus becomes, where am I not connected to myself enough? Where am I playing small? Where am I hiding? Where am I not showing up in the world? And how do I remove those blocks in between there? When that becomes your focus, the other stuff, like you said, just kind of comes right in and aligns and comes right in and aligns. And it doesn't become this pressure cooker of, can't wait for this big thing to come through. That is just sort of like your byproduct, because you are moving in alignment and you're facing the things that are coming at you. It's, Lacey always says it's this dance with the universe. You're co-creating and dancing, relinquishing the pressure and making your life that joyous moment, that connections of authenticity. How can I show up more as myself today? How can I sit with my feelings? How can I work through my feelings? How can I comfort myself? That's going to bring it through.
Like I have right here in my notes, I just looked down. This is something I wrote a couple years ago when I was first starting the work. Your most magnetic self lives within you. It is you, not something you're searching for, but shedding the layers, dimming the light, waiting to burst through in rainbow colors. Also, so funny that I wrote rainbow colors before I had come out.
Your authentic self knew.
It knew. I know. It's so wild. It's like, wow, you really are wise and you really are that magnetic person all the time. You can move so far from that center. It's just about going back to that center. And that's why I love having these journals and these notes to look back on, because there is nothing more inspiring and more telling of how far you've come than to literally hear it from your own mouth, from your younger self.
What is your favorite DI?
Ooh, I go through all of them. I go through them all. I love the Soothe one. And I love the ones we were doing in the Unblocking Challenge too, like the newer ones with the tapping as well. I also find myself to be a little bit more movement oriented, whereas before I was doing the DIs mostly when I would wake up when I was still in bed. And I found myself just falling asleep always. So it's like, I have to change this. So either it's about still doing it in the morning and getting up and moving to a couch so I can like feel a little bit different than me just being in bed. But I think Heather was talking about doing the DIs when she was out walking. And so I started doing that and felt really connected to that as well, because I love to hike. So being outside and feeling like the energy and climbing up mountains and looking out into the distance, it also feels very symbolic for like manifestation. So I love doing that and making the practice my own, as you guys say, always. It's basically like I wake up and I'm like, do I feel anxious? Well, put on the anxiety one, or like, the body one, or Soothe.
100%. what works for you for your daily DI practice this month might be different next month. Like I was so in the routine of waking up and putting them in next to my partner, before he would wake up in the morning. And now I'm like, I need a separate room. That works so well for me all throughout the unblocking challenge. Now, recently, I'm like, the second he rolls over a tinge, I'm like, "Ugh, you're disrupting my deep imagining."
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I got to start getting up, going into the guest room and doing it on that bed instead. Or just, you have to consistently check in with yourself and be like, what am I craving? What does my body need?
Totally. And on that point, like consistency is something I do struggle with. And I think it's still expanding for me to say that like I fall off all the time, and it's something where I have to constantly remind myself and making it a habit. And I mentioned I purchased an apartment in April and it was a fixer apartment. So I've been doing construction for 6 months and that has been extremely challenging and extremely expanding and in all the ways. And I found it really hard to stay consistent with my practice, even though it's probably the time that I needed it the most. So it's always a reminding myself. And it's so funny, I think as humans, we know what will make us feel good. But it's really hard to do it sometimes. It's like eating healthy and going to sleep on time and meditating and doing your journaling and stuff. Sometimes I look up and I'm like, why is my life so chaotic right now? Oh, it's because I haven't journaled this week. So it's a constant reminder and coming back to it. And I hope I can figure out the key to consistency in my life. But if I'm struggling with consistency in this work in TBM, where else am I probably struggling with consistency? Is this a pattern for me? In work, can I find myself more consistent in creating videos? It can go so far beyond what you even realize.
Yeah, 100%. That's such a good point. Everyone falls off and goes back on. I always know when I've sort of fallen off my practice when I'm like, why am I getting so tested right now? I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, I haven't showed up to do a DI in like 3 weeks. What am I doing? I need to figure out what's going on in the chaos. We launched the monthly check-in and then also the daily check-in journal prompts just as to inventory when you can't show up and you're like, I can't even think about doing a DI. I have no time in my schedule. Just be like, okay, what were my tests today? I'm going to carve out time in the next few weeks to sit down and really unpack that. Hopefully will really help all of you guys too.
And the relief is so instantaneous. You put on one DI and I promise it's like working out. You're never going to regret having done it. You get that relief and then you're like, oh, I remember again why I do this.
100%. Because the other thing is, I'm curious if you have this. Do you intellectualize through, oh, yeah, I understand that block now. And you're almost like, I don't need to go do a DI. I know what it's all about. And then you do the DI and you're like, oh, okay, I get why I needed to do it.
Totally. And you don't know what you don't know. It's so silly that we even think we know everything. We don't. We obviously don't. There's so much you learn about yourself in a day and then also, a year. So continually come back to it and be like, what else can I uncover? What more can I find out myself? What more can I do to share? And like, I find that interesting as well. Someone might look at me and say, well, I guess you've manifested everything, but that's not how I feel. Like I always feel like there's not exactly just more to manifest because that can be a bottomless pit, but just that there's so much more to uncover. There's new challenges that face themselves. The more I ask for, the bigger things I ask for, the more challenges that come with it. The more is expected of me as a person. Again, with this construction, I had to grow in my people pleasing and my communication and also the costs that come with everything. I'm asking for these things, but also that means things are going to be demanded of you as well. So it's a constant dance, a constant up leveling. There's always more to uncover. And the work really doesn't end, which for some people may feel really daunting. But for me, it's like, well, that means there's so much juice in life that you can squeeze out until the very end.
And I find comfort in the fact that at the new chapter phase, whatever I'm at, I have tools to go to. I'm never there and that's it. As humans, we crave growth. And if there was no growth, I think that would be a scarier place.
100%.
Oh my gosh, so exciting. One note I do want to ask you on too, we kind of touched on it, but so much has come through for you this year, in particular, even between your partner, your home, career, being on Chopped, like so many massive things have come through. How did that up-level integration period feel of like, wow, I'm really getting these big things that I've been calling in?
It was pretty shocking to the nervous system sometimes, especially like I was saying, like more is going to be called of you. And it's kind of like I was talking to my girlfriend about it when felt like I was just being tested left and right. And she was like, well, you're asking for these big things as well. Then like you have to meet them where they are. And expansion is also about that expanding of the nervous system to be able to hold more within yourself. It's not just like, okay, now I see her doing that, I want to do it too. So that is a big calling and it's a shoe to fill. But when that expansion happens, these things can come in and you're like, oh, well, I did do that. And now that's a check on my manifestation list. And sometimes they come in a different way than you expect. I have to look back and be like, wait, I was on a TV show, being on Chopped on the Food Network. That was my biggest goal when I was a child watching the Food Network. All I wanted to be was on the Food Network. And now I can say that that's the case. And yeah, so it's kind of an effortless welcoming in, but also that's a result of the work of that expansion of your nervous system to be able to hold. Because I think back and I'm like, okay, well, there are things that I'm doing now that I wouldn't have been able to do because I didn't have the capacity to do them. Energetically or just mentally, I didn't have the ability to communicate my worth.
So true. Okay. Any last tips for anyone out there of navigating this? And what would be one note you would tell your inner child?
To keep that sparkle, to never let anything or anyone take that away, because that is your magic and that is who you are. And to share it with the world is the biggest gift that you can give. It can allow someone else the opportunity to sparkle themselves.
Love it. So good. Thank you so much, Alix. And where can everyone connect with you and find you?
Yeah, you can find me online on the internet, probably more places than you need to, on YouTube and TikTok and Instagram. And you can find me at Major Traeger or Alix Traeger.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. This was so fun. I'm so excited that I've gotten to check this one off my list. And for everyone out there, just keep at it.
Thank you. I hope you guys enjoyed that episode as much as I did and we did at To Be Magnetic. I know listening through, even on the edits, I started to tear up because I was just so inspired and proud and really seeing the magic of this work and seeing the magic of all of our own potentials. And that's kind of what I was alluding to in the intro of why the challenge this year just has this other element to it. It feels so special. And I think it's because so many people are starting to come into the realization of uncovering who their true authenticity is. And that feels so palpable. It feels so powerful. The potentials are limitless and endless. And it really does feel like magic. So this week in the Manifestation Challenge, we really dove into authenticity. Theme of the episode is authenticity. And it's so important in this process because that reconnects you and grounds you into if you are manifesting something out of ego for validation, to be liked by others, and turning sort of the camera lens back on yourself and saying, but what do you want? If you were to craft your life, if you were to listen to your intuition, if you were to listen to your wants, needs, desires, what would bring you happiness? Not it brings you happiness because then I'm accepted by other. What brings you happiness because you're the one that you are looking to, facing, wanting to support, wanting to love on. And it's kind of like the foundation of growing that level of self-love when you can look back on all the pieces of you and say, you're deserving of that. I love you. It takes a long time to get there and maybe you'll have moments of it, but it's such a beautiful journey and so worth it. So just a little insight tip for you guys there. I am loving the fact that some of you are already manifesting. I have had so many DMs this week that said, just by doing the DI, I got a free cup of coffee and I got so much clarity on exactly what I want to call in. And I got connected with this one expander person who I've been meaning to connect with forever, or I got a job opportunity that popped up out of nowhere. And I think you'll start to see this a lot more with the challenge, that the more that you start to show yourself and take action and are unblocking and expanding in alignment to what you're calling in, the universe will start reflecting new things back at you. And for anyone who is facing a lot of tests this week, because I did get some of those too, that is a good thing. Tests and triggers mean the universe is like, okay, cool, we're dancing to get you what you want. I'm going to throw the places and spaces that aren't in alignment so you can heal and navigate through them. So just a little tip there for anyone. And don't forget, you can join at any time. It is not too late to join. Get your discount code from the spinner. Plug that code in when you purchase the pathway, and you'll have access to the challenge and utilization of the entire pathway to manifest the life of your dreams. We're so excited to see what comes through for you guys. Have an incredible week.